Kevin Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2009, a man named Michael Swan was sent to prison for defrauding his employer, the Otago District Health Board, of millions of dollars. The Minister of Health, Tony Ryle, was so incensed by the DHB's handling of the case that he sacked the board chair, tore strips off the board and appointed a Crown monitor. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that this particular minister was very interested in the subject of fraud, particularly against the Southern DHB. I am not, sir, expressing an opinion about whether or not the actions of Southlink Health in relation to about $15 million of taxpayers' health funds were legal or not. What I am clear about, and I remind members that I was intimately involved in this matter from 2003 to 2008, is that the South Island District Health Boards, and particularly the Otago and then Southern DHB, who led action on the matter, believed very strongly that Southlink Health had spent money outside the scope of their contract and without authorisation, and that they had evidence to establish this. By 2010, the Southern DHB was ready to take the matter to court, having spent 7 years of negotiation and then mediation without achieving any progress at all, and no prospect of success if the process were prolonged. I also know that in 2010 the Southern DHB had received at least one and possibly two legal opinions to the effect that fraudulent behaviour may have occurred. Tony Ryle first claimed in this House that he thought this was a commercial dispute not involving allegations that public funds had been misused. Now he concedes that he knew all along that this was the nature of those allegations. He first claimed to have had no involvement. He now concedes that in 2010 he advised the DHB not to take the matter to court. And as every DHB chair and CEO in the country knows, the Minister's advice is actually an instruction. He has claimed several times, most recently in his answer to my primary question on 5th of March, that former DHB CEO Brian Rousseau was wrong to say that senior ministry officials were kept well informed about the matter and about the fraud possibility. He says that they didn't know about a possible fraud until late 2013. Today, sir, I have released correspondence in response to Mr Rousseau's request that I help defend his reputation, which proves that senior ministry officials clearly were in the loop and were aware that fraud had been raised as a possibility in 2010. I am looking forward, sir, to the Minister correcting this answer as well in the House. What this shows, Mr Speaker, is that the Minister's account is completely implausible. His story is now that in an environment where everybody knew that he was super sensitive about the possibility of fraud, the board and senior staff of the DHB, Southlink Health itself, his senior ministry and National Health Board officials, and his own monitor at the Southern DHB all knew that fraud had been raised as a possibility, but nobody thought to tell him until late last year when the Auditor General raised the matter. It's very, very hard to believe, sir, and I don't believe it. I call on the Minister to release all the advice he received from officials about this matter immediately. And, sir, I have to call on him to do this because the Ministry of Health, from whom I have requested many documents under the Official Information Act, including advice to the Minister, has refused to release every document except one, the Auditor General's advice, the one document they knew I already had. Mr Speaker, I believe that even the interference that the Minister admits to having made in this case is inappropriate and stepping over the line. If it can be proved that he knew about the possibility of fraud, That, sir, would be completely and utterly unacceptable.
Colin King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the weekend just gone, we had the most positive